What the 16 personalities can teach you. ENFJs, that we are inextricably connected to others. Remember that you're intimately connected to everyone else in the world. So when you attack another person, you attack yourself. It's not just that we are connected to others, it's that we have a responsibility to them because of that. What is life, if not the impact we have on others, and the impact they have on us? This is unavoidable. At some point in the vague future of humanity, we might be made in labs by non-organic means, and even live in complete isolation beyond that. But for now, we are stuck with each other. ENFJs lean into this and learn to speak human fluently. They seek to master the ever-changing steps in the dance of human interactions. They connect and teach us to do the same. ENTPs. There's always another way to look at things. When two or more people agree on an issue, I form on the other side. Imagine, if you will, a genius-level intellect trapped in the occasional maturity level of a 7-year-old. Then you will have a small insight into the ENTP psychology, prodding and poking with yes, but why though questions that make you think, well, actually, I don't know why. Their NE and TI combo make them alternative scenario simulating machines. This is infinitely valuable for anyone who needs a fresh outlook to get them unstuck in life. ENTJs, to take the reins. If your ship doesn't come in, swim out to it. Some horse riding insiders claim that a jockey can have as little as 5% to 10% influence on a horse's performance, with the currents of chance and circumstance dragging us away from our preferred path. So often, life can feel like a particularly unruly horse. Even if we do have such a small level of control, ENTJs teach us that it should be maximized regardless. Grab the reins, take charge of your life. ESFPs, that comfort comes from within. Is there any other way to be? I mean, this is it. This is my body, my soul. I gotta live with it. I'd better get comfortable. I plan on taking it for a long ride. The trait that stands out to me the most about ESFPs is their capacity to be comfortable everywhere. They are eternally at ease. This naturalness can even be infectious to others around them. It comes from a combination of them valuing realness, both from themselves, but others too, and also being lasered in on the now. Much anxiety and discomfort comes from our minds thinking about scenarios that might happen, ones that actually rarely happen. ESFPs can switch this off. It's kind of off by default, actually. That effortlessness, and even elegance at times, with which they face life, is really something to behold. ENFPs, that some things have to be believed to be seen. The moment you doubt whether you can fly, you cease forever to be able to do it. To be human is to imagine, to envision things that might be, even if they are far away from the current reality. ENFPs visit this imaginative realm like they are returning home. In fact, they might prefer to stay there, primarily. What makes ENFPs so endearing and unusual is this interplay between their NE and FI, between ideation and emotion, between expansive innovation and authentic values. This makes their endless invention fundamentally individual and personal, and therefore unique and captivating. INFPs, the importance and power of identity. I am out with lanterns, looking for myself. The exploration of self is an endless journey and adventure for INFPs. It is, however, kind of paradoxical. INFPs search for a self that is constantly changing. It's like trying to catch smoke in a headlock, or nail jello to a table. Each part that's pinned down is a victory, but can often open up more doors than it closes. To stand for something has a certain nobility to it. Even better if you stand for something admirable, subjective as that might be. More than this though, is there actually a point to life if you don't make an individual contribution in an authentic life? ESTJs. Order is a gateway to creativity. It's hard to be fully creative without structure and constraint. Try to paint without a canvas. Creativity and freedom are two sides of the same coin. I like the best of both worlds. Want freedom? Get organized. Want to get organized? Get creative. A personality type is like a set of priorities. In this way, the order in which people do things is as important as how much they do of each thing. ESTJs will typically think, let's set things up right. Let's structure them to work effectively. Then, once that's done, we can push boundaries and innovate. In my personal experience with ESTJs, they're all in favour of doing something radical and bold and creative. They just want to be sure that on those days where the creative juices are simply not flowing, that they can fall back on firm footing and with sturdy systems backing them up. ESTP, to be a participant in life. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. There are many ways to live life. You can be an analyzer of life, someone who studies it through a detached lens. You can be a consumer, someone who takes in more than they put out, and there is nothing wrong with that. You can be a critic of life, as the quote described somewhat disparagingly. ESTPs are partakers, participants, people who engage directly with everything life has to offer. The joy and freedom of this is one of the greatest things that ESTPs can teach. ISTPs, to be firm in thought, but fluid in action. While some of us act without thinking, too many of us think without acting. ISTPs dance that line between thought and action beautifully. There are 3 modes they have available to them. The first is pure intellectual and academic mode. The second is in the moment, real-time flow, where they are reacting and adapting. The third is a hybrid of both, where they are calculating and flowing simultaneously, and one mode feeds into the other in a kind of cyclical way. ISTPs can be rigid in their logical conclusions, in the framework they construct to understand the world, but in the application of that, they are fluid. INFJs, to exercise power without force. Do not attempt to conquer the world with force, for force only causes resistance. I've talked about this notion of gentle power before with INFJs. This can take 2 broad forms. Either they show strength in their resistance to outside pressure and force, or they can gently guide people and events through a subtle influence. In either case, INFJs teach us that force and overt aggression are not the only ways to move the world. In fact, they might be the worst. INTPs, the beauty of unfiltered reality. Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. To illustrate this point, I'll use a little story. I remember watching what was almost certainly a David Attenborough show. There was a scene where a pack of wolves brutally killed some deer, or elk, or caribou. I don't exactly remember which. In their predatory pragmatism, they targeted a younger, more vulnerable prey, which seemed inherently unfair. Right away, the wolves felt like the villains. Then, a few scenes later, it showed the cute and fluffy wolf cubs. They were starving and on the verge of death. Suddenly, things got complex. What do you do with that? Who is the villain? Who is the victim? At some point, I had this strangely zen feeling, one of acceptance. Suddenly, it didn't matter whether things were fair or wrong even. I was simply staring at, understanding, and also marveling at reality. Reality as it is, not how I'd like it to be. That is something that INTPs do almost as a default state, and is definitely something they can teach everyone else. ISFJs, the power of service. No one has ever become poor by giving. The word power is intentionally chosen for this one. People often equate the role of giver to being somehow lesser in nature, which is always confusing to me. In a Machiavellian sense, the person who gives, assuming what they're giving is valuable, is fostering dependency. In a, nicer sense, you're bringing value to someone, which is an inherently powerful and good thing to do. ISFJs embrace this role, which is, in my view, extremely clever, not least because it makes them underestimated by others. Again, very powerful indeed, and something other people can definitely learn. ESFJs, to be catalyzers and encouragers of growth. We can improve our relationships by leaps and bounds if we become encouragers instead of critics. There was something else I wanted to put in the title of this one, but couldn't find the right way to phrase it. ESFJs are also comforters, not in the conventional sense of that word, but rather that they can make people feel instantly at home in all situations. Right away, that opens people up to them, and from there, they can work their magic of getting the best out of people, then encouraging and uplifting them beyond that point. They really are masterful at this. INTJs, to synthesize and strategize. Life is not found in atoms or molecules or genes as such. but in organization, not in symbiosis, but in synthesis. INTJs are intellectually open people. They might come across as strident, self-assured, and even forceful at times, not because they're closed off to other views or information, but instead because of what happens internally. NI is constantly absorbing things, picking up on patterns, coming across an idea or concept, and seeing how it relates and fits in with existing knowledge. Through a slow burning percolation, things get pieced together. They get synthesized. That on its own is great. But INTJs take this a step further. After the synthesis comes the strategy. What am I now going to do with this information? To have both processes working in conjunction is deeply powerful. ISFPs, to express in many mediums. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. The simplest form of this is just to speak, to talk about your thoughts, feelings, views, values, and opinions in a direct, unfiltered, and authentic manner. Beyond this, there are endless other ways to express any of those previously mentioned things. A plethora of mediums, which kind of sounds like a psychic convention. Of course, this will vary greatly depending on the ISFP in question, but generally, ISFPs teach us not just to be real, but intensely real, unapologetically real, uncompromisingly real. ICJs, the value of avoiding mistakes. It is remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid, instead of trying to be very intelligent. Avoiding stupidity is easier than seeking brilliance. More than that, I think that brilliance is actually something that can emerge from the absence of silly and big mistakes. Ones that set you back and even derail your life. Things that rob you of time, energy, emotional bandwidth, psychological fortitude, and motivation. Cut them out. That is what ISTJs so often do. It is probably the most underratedly powerful approach to life, in my view. There are some of you out there lurking in the shadows that frequently watch the videos but don't subscribe. Feel free to change that should you wish. Also, if there is something you would like to teach me personally, then feel free to seek me out on the Love Who Discord server. The link for that is down below.